What's up, everyone? Welcome back. We're into week 7 for college football. Hopefully, everybody is still rocking and rolling. Hopefully, your bankroll is still alive. Last week was a pretty good week for myself. Hopefully, it was for you as well. I thought there were some pretty clear-cut spots that were playable. A few of the main guys that I had exposure to, Brock Bowers, a few of the other ones absolutely smashed. So, didn't take anything down, but definitely had a pretty solid week in terms of profitability and cash-ins. So we are now into week 7, like I mentioned. So before we get to the slate this week, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. As always, helps a ton. I know every other show says it as well, but helps with the algorithm, helps with us gaining followers, and allows us to do more content. So plain and simple. Cool. Let's do it. This week should be a pretty good one. There is obviously one glaring game that everybody's going to be flocking to. I'm very curious to see how everybody approaches this Oregon and Washington game, which has a 67 total on it. That is, 11 points higher in terms of a total than any other game on the slate. We're going to get into this a little bit more, but let me go ahead and review the slate here real quick. We have Syracuse playing Florida State. FSU is a 17.5-point favorite at home with the 56 total. Iowa State at Cincy, moderate interest there, 5-point spread leaning to the Bearcats. Arkansas goes down to Alabama and Tuscaloosa, where Alabama is a 20-point favorite. We have Georgia paying a visit to Vanderbilt, where they're a 31.5-point favorite on the road. Indiana goes to Michigan, 33.5-point favorite. At home are the Wolverines. Cal goes to Utah, where the Utes are a 13.5-point favorite at home. Kansas goes out to Stillwater and plays Oklahoma State. Kansas is a 3-point road favorite. Texas A&M goes to Tennessee, where the Vols are a 3.5-point favorite, 55 total there. Illinois goes to Maryland. Maryland's a 2-touchdown favorite at home. And then Iowa goes to Wisconsin with a robust 34.5 total on that one, where Wisconsin's a 10-point favorite. So, like I mentioned, kind of touching just overall big picture thoughts on the slate. The elephant in the room is Oregon, Washington. That's going to decide your entire build, not only for the slate, but for your team and roster construction. And what I mean by that is, I think DraftKings did a very good job of pricing everybody up for the most part in this game, the main players. You've got Michael Penix and Bo Nix, both above 10K. You've got the running backs are fairly priced, but based on their production. And then receiver-wise, you've got Franklin, Adunes, McMillan, all of them over 7K, with Franklin over 8K. I think DraftKings did a good job. You're going to have to decide, very clearly which direction you want to go here. Being that I think it's interesting that both of these teams as well have a very tight, what should I say, like target share. Sorry, I was losing it there. The main guys get the ball, right? There's 3 or 4 guys on each team that touch the rock, that have big play potential. Yes, there's some other touchdowns that kind of get pushed out and spread around here and there. But for the most part, you're going to see the main guys be toting the rock, scoring the touchdowns, being the ones that you want to get exposure to. So once again, if you want to get exposure to the entire game stack, you're going to have to find multiple pieces that are very cheap in order to make that work. Or I think what's going to be more popular this week is you're going to see a lot of teams a lot of people flocking to one side or the other of this game for each of their teams. So let's go ahead and jump to quarterbacks who I like this week. Obviously, I like Penix and Nix. I think Penix for me is where I'm going to lean. The reason is I think Oregon's rushing defense is better. Washington also doesn't have an amazing rushing offense. It's going to be win or loss on the arm of Michael Penix. Bo Nix on the other side is fantastic, as we've seen. He has struggled in some road games against top teams before. So keep an eye on that. But, I mean, he's a great play on the slate. I think the one challenge is they do have a few running backs that can steal some touches, can steal some touchdowns from him. But Bo Nix also gives you more rushing upside as well himself than Michael Penix. So it's a give or take. Obviously, no situation is perfect. I think both of these guys are elite plays. I'm going to be having most of them, if not like probably one of them in most of my lineups is the better way to say it. So I think both guys are great play, but I'm leaning Michael Penix if you're asking me to pick personally. Then we go down. Jalen Milroe at Alabama. I like him this week, 8,400. Alabama's a big favorite at home against Arkansas, who can't seem to stop anybody. Milroe's been really good, man. Since his benching a couple weeks back, he's been really solid, both running and on the ground, as well as throwing. He's been pretty efficient overall. 8,400 is, I think, a good price for him. And Alabama's a 3-touchdown favorite. And the focal point of that offense, he should be able to pay off that price tag, in my opinion. Then we go down. Talia Tagovailoa, Maryland, 8,200. I think Maryland's in a good spot. The tricky part with Maryland here and with him all year is it's really hard to pair him up. He spreads the ball around to like what feels like 18 different players. So in my opinion and how I am going to roll with it is if I'm playing him, I'm playing him by himself. I'm not stacking him up. I'm just hoping he throws 5-6 touchdowns in would be amazing to like 4 different guys, 5 different guys. So that's kind of your hope there. If one guy does destroy you, it is what it is, but I don't think he's going to be highly owned because he doesn't have a very clear pairing partner there. So I'm going to play him kind of by himself and naked. I think Kyle McCord is an interesting play this week. Ohio State, big favorites. McCord's price is finally coming down, 7,900, which he's now more playable. When he was in the high 8s and 9s, I just couldn't get there for a guy that wasn't quite blowing the roof off of people's doors. Or blowing the roof off. But Ohio State goes to Purdue, where Purdue cannot stop a soul in the league. So I like Kyle McCord quite a bit here. Emeka Egbuka is questionable in this matchup, which makes things a little bit better, in my opinion, because I think if you're going to do it, you can just go straight to Harrison, who's down to 8,500. So I like that stacking partner quite a bit, especially if Egbuka is out this week. With a few big games coming for Ohio State, there is a strong feeling in the building. It sounds like that they are going to rest him and get him healthy, I believe, for Penn State in a few weeks. Emory Jones for Cincinnati, 7,300. Price is right. He's been very hit or miss this year. He's a perfect GPP play because when he's on, he can get you 25, 30-plus points. When he's off, it's going to be a dud. So take your shots. He has massive potential, and he has potential, I would say, at 7,300 to put you at the top of a GPP for sure. It's just a matter if you get him on the right game. I think with Cincinnati, playing Iowa State. Yeah, I think there's a good opportunity here for him to definitely show out and go for 21, 22-plus points on DraftKings for sure. Jason Bean let everyone down last week, 7K. I really like this matchup, Kansas and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is playing much better. This total is solid, 56.5. Kansas is a 3-point road favorite. This is exactly the type of game that we're looking for. Again, it's not going to probably top Oregon, Washington, but I would say it's probably my second favorite game on the slate from a DFS perspective. So yes, both Jason Bean. I have some interest in him at 7K for sure. Luke Altmaier is the other one, 6,200 at Illinois. He's just too cheap for a guy that has rushing upside and can rush for 100 yards and a score right there. He has potential to pay it off very easily, that price tag. I'm not thinking he's the best quarterback on the slate or anything like that, but I think Altmaier has to be in consideration, especially if you want to go heavy on that Washington-Oregon game. He's a way to get a cheap quarterback with 20-plus point upside at 6,200. Moving over to running backs, Braylon Allen, 8,300 for Wisconsin. I know they have a tough matchup versus Iowa, but this is a guy who's going to get 20-plus touches. No one is probably going to be on him, is my guess. 8,300 is a way to get contrarian in your builds, is my opinion on him this week. Travion Henderson returns for Ohio State, we think. Monitor that news, but 7K for him. Again, if Egbuka is out, you can see Henderson definitely get more of a workload. Don't mind that play at all. Devin Neal at 6,500 is going to be one of my favorite plays of the week, as is Ollie Gordon right below him at 6,200. I talked about that Oklahoma State game. Both these running backs are very live in this matchup, and I'll have a lot of both of them in my lineups. LaQuint Allen for Syracuse, 6,100. Yeah, he just gets good workload every week. I don't think this is an amazing matchup, especially if Florida State here just pulls away early. But if this game stays close, he's definitely in play and could have a solid outing here. Jalen Glover at 5,500 for Utah, I think is a really solid play if Jaquindon Jackson continues to miss for Utah. Monitor that news. Obviously, it's going to come down to Saturday, as Utah definitely does not like to talk about injuries. Caleb Johnson for Iowa, 5,500. Price is just too cheap against Wisconsin, who does not have the same defense as years past. I like him quite a bit. And then two guys who are going to be a little bit more risky, a little bit more pay down options. But once again, the theme being is if you want to get some of this Oregon and Washington game in there, you're going to have to find spots to pay down. I think Corey Kiner at Cincinnati at 5,200 is in play, and Devin Mockabee at Purdue at 5,200 is very much in play. I know the matchup for Purdue especially is not great against Ohio State, but we saw Tyrone Tracy go down for Purdue last week. Mockabee kind of steps into that bell cow role. He had a great start to the year. Tracy kind of took over. Now that he's hurt, Mockabee kind of gets the ball back in his hands. He has some upside in the passing game as well. I think 5,200 is way too cheap for a guy that should get 15 plus touches in this one. I like Mockabee quite a bit. Moving on to receiver. I mean, again, guys, up top here, there's not a lot that needs to be said. All of these players are really solid. My favorites kind of going in order: Marvin Harrison Jr., Franklin, Adunes, Bowers, Evan Stewart's in play for Texas A&M at 7,100. Jalen McMillan, obviously, for Washington. He is expected back. I love that price tag at $7K. My guess is everyone else will too. Keon Coleman for Florida State, 6,900. There's rumors that Johnny Wilson's going to miss this game. If he is out, I love Keon Coleman this week. Xavier Henderson is your pairing option for Cincinnati if you're going to go that direction, and you are going to be playing Emory Jones. Roman Wilson for Michigan. Like every Michigan game, he may get only 5 catches or 5 touches of the ball, but he could pop 2 scores in. So 6,300 is a little bit expensive for him, but we've seen 20-point games from him already this year. He will be a little bit of a contrarian play. Jalen Polk for Washington, 6,100. Dynamite play, going to be popular. Jeremiah Hunter for Cal, I like quite a bit, 5,500 there. Isaiah Williams for Illinois for playing Altmaier, I think is solid at 55. Jalen Noel for Iowa State, if you're looking for a bring back option in that Cincinnati game, is definitely definitely live. Isaiah Jones for Syracuse at 5K. If you want to roll the dice with Maryland, Caden Prather is 5K. I think he's a good price tag if you want to try to stack up Lil Tua. Yassine for Purdue, slot receiver for them, 5K. If you think Ohio State pulls away and Purdue's very much in catch-up mode, could see it just from a PPR standpoint alone, him hit value. Anaya Smith for A&M is one of my favorite plays on the slate just because that 4,900 price tag is way too cheap. I'll be having quite a bit of him in my lineups. Ty Washington for Arkansas stepped in last week and absolutely smashed 4,300. I don't really know what to expect. My guess is he's not going to do the same thing against Alabama, who's a much better defense. But once again, 4,300. If Arkansas is going to kind of treat him as a 1B option of that offense, it's something we have to look at. I'm doing it again. Eric Ali for Iowa. There is nothing really – I can't believe I have 2 Iowa guys now on my spreadsheet this week. But this offense is so consolidated between like Caleb Johnson and Eric Ali. Yeah, 4,300. Price is right. Rack them up, baby. Let's go. Braden Smith for Cincinnati, I think, is definitely in play at 4,200. And Jaheim Bell at 4,100. His price just continues to stay down there. He's not a consistent player, but he's one of those guys as well. If Johnny Wilson misses this game, I will have quite a bit of him. He's usually very touchdown dependent, but that's okay. I mean, that's what we're looking for at 4,100 in tournaments. So if you're going to go heavy again in some of these higher price tag matchups, I think Jaheim Bell, Braden Smith, Eric Ali are all guys you can take shots on. down there to kind of pay things off. So that's kind of it. Once again, kind of touching on my favorite stacks. Washington, Oregon, obviously with everybody else. Alabama quite a bit. Ohio State quite a bit. I will have moderate to lower interest in Maryland. Cincinnati, I have some interest in quite a bit. This Kansas Oklahoma State game I like a lot, not necessarily the passing game. And then Illinois, kind of a splash to get cheap there. So that's kind of it. That's my favorite plays this week in terms of the main early slate here in college football. A little bit shorter of a show. I think my player pool is a little bit more condensed than it has been. People are going to talk about some auxiliary plays from that Washington-Oregon game. I think if you're going to go full game stack, you're going to have to do that. It's virtually impossible, or not, shouldn't say impossible, to put together a good lineup if you want to do Penix, Nix, and get multiple receivers from that game in there without taking some shots on some guys that are very risky in my opinion. But if you want to go there and you want to ride the lightning, I think you should go for it. This game has the potential to really, really shoot out. Again, the over-under on it is 67. So they're projecting like a 34-33 type game, a 35-31 type game. Like this game is going to have a lot of points here as long as that weather holds up. I will say, as I always do, when you start seeing the flock move over to these games, especially on the passing side, don't forget about the running game. That's an easy way to get contrarian in this one. We'll see kind of as Friday afternoon starts to approach what ownership starts to look like. But if you start getting the feeling that both passing games are going to be massively over-owned, 50, 60%, let's say, get a piece of the running game. I think it's a way to get different. I think it's a way to steal thunder from both Nix and Penix if you want to get there. Very possible that some of these teams, get down inside the 5-yard line and watch Mr. Running Back tote that in. So that's all I got. As always, follow me on the X. I'm at the Notorious VJL for up-to-date news. If you have questions, if you have information that you'd like to share, I multiple times this year, people have sent me plays that I've used and won money on. I hopefully can do the same thing to everybody else and kind of share ideas. There's plenty of pie to go around for everybody. So good luck this week. Take advantage as the season is well underway, but we don't have much left, and we will